I'm going to figure out this lake. Okay, I'm back at Lake Hamilton. Gotta figure out how to catch some big fish out here. Okay, so I'm gonna load the boat up here in a second, but I just want to show you guys the water. It's super muddy. I don't know if y'all can tell, but behind me the lake is super muddy. We've had a ton of rain over the last couple days and a huge mud line out in the middle of the lake, so probably gonna change the fishing up a little bit. But fortunately it's a warm rain. I think some of these fish might be getting up on these shallow mud lines and chasing shad if the water's still warm up there. So I'm gonna start with a trap up shallow, see if I can't catch some fish. So let's go. First fish of the day right here. That's a good one. That fish was super shallow. That fish is up in like 1.5 feet of water, guys. I think I might have figured something out on that rattle trap. Not a big one, probably a 2 1/4, 2.5 pounder, but that's like 5 minutes of fishing right there. Pulled up on my first spot and got a nice fish on a little Rayburn red rattle trap. So this could be the deal today. Woo! That fish was so shallow. He was up, I mean, the water temps are pretty warm right now. I got crankbait in my gloves, but the water temps are pretty warm right now. 53 degrees because of that rain. But that fish was up on that point. I mean, you can see the bottom right there. That's crazy. Oh God, got him. Good one. I thought I was hung on a branch, just like the toad. Get up here, fish. Stay pegged. It's not that big. It's a nice one though. And that rattle trap again. Get up here. It's a 3.5 pounder right there. Look at that. That's again so shallow. My trolling motor's in the rocks right now. These fish are up just on the bank. This water's muddy here too. I'm not even on like a mud line or anything. I'm just in the mud. And I've actually been fishing for about 1.5 hours since I last caught that fish, and I was just about to give up on this pattern. Let me get this guy on hook real quick. Oh, there we go. That's a really nice bass right there. Again, got him on that red rattle trap, and he was again super shallow. So I'm gonna throw this guy in the live well just for pictures later. Now I'm gonna get back to throwing down this bank. Awesome. Yeah, I was literally just about to give up on this pattern, and that fish saved my day potentially. I was just fishing down this super shallow flat bank, and there's a little bit of chunk rock on it, but I mean it's really nothing special. And there's a little stick right here. I thought I was hung on the stick, but it was that nice 3.5 pounder. So kind of a weird day developing, I guess. Oh, and yeah, so that last video on Lake Hamilton, I spent most of my time graphing offshore, and I still think there's some big fish out there, but there's obviously some big fish up super shallow too, up in this muddy water biting the trap. So I'm gonna keep doing this. And I'm not really doing anything special when I'm fishing this trap. I'm literally just casting it out as shallow as I can throw it and reeling it back to the boat at like a moderate pace. And both those fish just destroyed it, but both of them bit it within 2 or 3 feet of the shore. And so I think one thing I need to make sure I do, even though I'm getting hung in the rocks a lot, because that's where the fish are sitting. Okay, so here's a better look at the spot I'm fishing, and it's just a bank between 2 points, and there's some good chunk rock on it, and it's really shallow. But there actually is a creek channel that swings in kind of close to the shore. And what I think is happening is that these fish are pulling up out of the creek channel onto the shallow bank because of the rain and the warm water. When that water rises, fish like to move up shallower, and so I think that's why the fish are pulling up on this spot. And here's another look at the spot using the Navionics web app, and as you can see, there's a nice little creek channel swing here. There's also some good brush piles out on the end of this little point, and I think that some of these fish that are using this bank probably were wintering on those brush piles and then moved up with the rain. good one. Oh, he pulled off. That was another 3-pounder right there. Golly, probably horsed him a little bit too much. Man, but that's another really good fish. Up here shallow again. Oh, man, we should have got that one in the boat, but probably just pulling a little bit too hard on him with these small treble hooks. I basically just moved one pocket over, and this is about 10-15 minutes after I caught that last fish. And I don't know, the pockets I'm fishing where I'm getting bit aren't really that different from anything else I'm fishing. I probably covered about a mile of bank with this rattle trap, just hitting a bunch of different shallow little pockets. And I don't know, there isn't really a defining feature that's similar between the three of them, like a creek channel swing or like chunk rock or anything. It just seems kind of random. So I'm just gonna kind of keep fishing and see if I can put together some sort of pattern where I can figure out what type of pockets these fish are on. But right now, it's just covering water, throwing this rattle trap, and hoping there's a fish there. Oh, one thing I'm gonna do real quick is switch out the treble hooks on this crankbait. I've been dragging this thing through these shallow rocks for about 3 hours now, and a lot of times I'm getting like hung up on little sticks and branches and things like that. And when that happens, it'll actually dull the points of those treble hooks. And so I'm just gonna put on a new set, and these are just Gamakatsu size 4 EWG treble hooks, and they're really great little treble hooks, and I put them on all of my shallow running crankbaits. And so I would definitely suggest changing out treble hooks on crankbaits. You see there, that fish popped off, and I think if I had switched out the treble hooks sooner, I probably wouldn't have lost that fish. All set to go. Okay, so on that hook set right there, I actually bumped my microphone and I lost all the audio from my mic for the rest of this video. So I'm actually gonna do some voiceovers for a few of these clips, so sorry about that. But what happened right there is I just lost about 2.5 to 3 pounder again right after I lost that fish and right after changing out hooks. So I was kind of frustrated, so I fished around for a little while and then came back to this spot where I lost those 2 fish, and this is what happened. Another one on that rattle trap. So these fish are so stocky too. I mean, you can feel these fish are super solid. Let me get this guy unhooked. Oh, there we go. Same exact spot where I just caught or lost those 2 fish actually. And what I ended up doing was I changed out the hooks, still lost the fish. So actually, instead of changing up my hook set and trying to set the hook lighter on the fish, I changed up rods and went to my flat side crankbait rod, which is a medium light action rod. And that fish didn't pull off this time. So this might be the right setup to put more fish in the boat. Okay, so here's a look at that spot where I just lost those 2 good ones and caught that squeaker. And all it is a little pocket off of the main channel, and there's nothing really that special about it. But the one thing that stuck out when I was driving by it was that there were 2 blue herrings sitting on the point. And I think that's because there's some shad pushed up in this pocket. And so whenever you see blue herrings diving or sitting on a point, go fish that stretch, because sometimes there can be some fish there. Now, if we look at the Navionics web app, I think another reason why this pocket was so good is that there's actually a creek channel that runs right outside the mouth of this pocket. And there's actually a really good brush pile off this point here where I've caught some fish on an Alabama rig in the past. And what I think is happening is that the fish that normally sit in this brush pile moved up into this pocket because of the rain, and you saw those fish were super pale like they'd been offshore. And so I think that's why there's so many fish stacked up in this little pocket.
Wow, look how fat that thing is! Holy cow! Look at that thing! Fishing down another just random bank. And the water's really clear actually, so I don't even know if the water color makes a difference. It might just mean covering water with this rattle trap if you want to get bit, but that is a fat spot.
Now here's a look at all the spots that I fished today, and they were all pretty different. They all had different water clarities and cover on the bank. The only similarity is that they were all shallow, flat areas close to deep water. And that's what I was looking for when I was running around the lake today, shallow, flat areas with access to deep water close by.
but I actually ran a ton of areas like this throughout the day, and if you look at this map of the lower end of Lake Hamilton, all the red areas are places I fished. And so I think the real key today was just covering water with that rattle trap, not getting too caught up on what the banks look like, and that's pretty typical in the winter. A lot of times the fish will group up in small areas, so just cover water, fish kind of fast, and you'll run into them sooner or later. Okay, so here's the part where I normally talk about my baits and equipment for the day, but I actually lost all the audio for this part, so I'm just going to voice over myself talking, which is kind of weird, but whatever. So right now I'm just talking about the bait I'm throwing. It's a striking red-eye shad in the Sam Rayburn red craw color. I like a red color crankbait in the winter. For some reason it just really catches a lot of good bass for me. And this bait is actually the tungsten 2-tap version of the red-eye shad, and it has a really unique sound. It has that one knocker sound, which really seems to attract bass in the winter. Okay, and then as far as my equipment goes, I already talked about the rod. It was just a 7-foot medium light action crankbait rod, and I switched up from that medium heavy action rod to the medium light so I wouldn't pull the hooks out of the fish's mouth. And then I was pairing that with a 6:3-to-1 gear ratio bait casting reel, and I was throwing that with 15-pound fluorocarbon line.
Well guys, I fished my way all the way back to the boat ramp and I still don't feel like I have this pattern figured out. I managed to catch a limited bass today and then jumped off a couple more, and I probably have had about 13 or 14 pounds if I put all the fish in the boat. And seems like a pretty good pattern to run with this rattle trap down the bank. I just don't know what type of banks or what areas to throw it in. It just seemed pretty random today. But either way, hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned something about throwing this rattle trap up shallow in the winter. And if you did, hit like and subscribe down below and leave a comment if you have any questions about what I was doing, or maybe if you have any clues on where to throw this bait this time of year. So again, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next time. I want y'all to see all these lights up in here. You see this? There's like origami cranes. The trees are all lit up and there's like fish, lights and stuff in there. It's pretty cool.